This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of My Perspective and Comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, My Perspective and Comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Hello and welcome to My Perspective and Comments. And folks, we've had a busy week. We had President Trump this week out on the campaign trail. He also visited Wisconsin, Kenosha, and visited with the law enforcement and also surveyed the damage that took place there in Kenosha. And that's where I want to start right now. You know, there was a lot that was being said to President Trump not to go. The governor didn't want him there. The mayor didn't. You heard Joe Biden from his basement home saying, no, you know, I'm not going, and President Trump is being irresponsible for going there. Well, President Trump went. And as I said, he met with law enforcement and he did survey what took place. And he promised to rebuild and to bring the support that would be needed to get Kenosha back and restore and continue to have restoration in that community. So that was a good outing for President Trump as he spent time there in Kenosha. And the liberal media was right out in the forefront saying no, he shouldn't go, but he did go. And guess what, folks? Joe Biden is ending up going to Kenosha now. And, and here's the very Joe Biden, the very one that says, no, I'm not going, and President Trump should not be going either. But how things change when a leader stands forward and has a good response as he spent time there in Kenosha. So Joe Biden ends up going. Now, why? Why did he go? And why has this week Joe Biden come out from hiding in his home? Well, I think the polls, and there seems to be a shift in the political winds right now. After the Republican National Convention took place, you heard the media, they kept touting, no bump. Trump, there was no bump from the convention. But the question is, why has Joe Biden come out from hiding? And I think that says it all. Why Joe Biden is going to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And why Joe Biden now is getting on the campaign trail. In fact, he was taking some questions from, he was actually out there fielding questions. And what was really kind of pathetic in that effort is, here's Joe Biden taking questions, give and take, where, people are asking him questions, and he's reading off a prompter the answers. So there's been a lot of discussion on Joe Biden's mental health, and is this individual really? Does he have the wherewithal and the faculties to be the commander-in-chief? And as each day goes by, there seems to be more evidence that Sleepy Joe is been struggling. And I mentioned Sleepy Joe because I guess he's woken up now, because he has come out on, or he is on the campaign trail right now. but there's still a lot of questions regarding where he is mentally, and all indications is that there might be a deficit there. And that's why you're hearing a lot of people talking about, well, no, Nancy Pelosi this week. No, Joe shouldn't even dignify debating. There shouldn't be any debates. Well, that narrative right now out of Pelosi's mouth, I think, is signaling that there's a concern to have Joe Biden get out there and in a debate stage, because there's there's the Democrats are scared of what appears to be happening before our eyes right now, that there's a total meltdown where he loses track where he might even be on what town he might be in, or what city when he's debating, or just the when there's a question that gets asked, where he's asked a question and he totally loses it and doesn't know, that has no clue on how to answer the question, or just not know the material because he's forgotten it, and it's escaped him. So it's those type of things that could, one debate where he falters, and a lot of people have been watching him and saying there's not one interview that he goes through when they do interview him and ask questions that there isn't some bauble here or there. So a lot of the brain trusts are saying, well, we have to keep Joe off the no debates. And it's very surprising that he's out on the campaign trail. But I think that the answer is question, or the question is answered. Why? Because as Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon on CNN were talking about, that these riots, they have to stop. I mean, it's hurting the Democrats in the polls. So there's your answer. The Democrats are getting hurt by what the American people in some TV outlets are showing what's been taking place. The anarchy, the looting, the rioting, the hurting people. And now we're seeing, people shooting and killing each other. And, America's not going to vote for that. America won't vote for that. And it's starting to show up now in the polls. And the bump that the liberal media was trying to push and saying never happened, I think we now know that there has been a bump. And the polls are starting to reflect it. So we have the anarchy in the streets, and we also have a message of hope. And we have a message of, we are a nation under God. We are a nation that stands for a life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness. And it's not, you didn't hear that message in the Democratic convention. The contrasts were so stark that the Republicans had a vision, and to make America stronger, bringing jobs back. And again, as the campaign theme for the Republicans were promises made and promises kept. So the polls, I think, are definitely reflecting positively for President Trump at this point. Also, I'd like to talk about what we saw after that Thursday night, after President Trump's acceptance speech. And as the Republicans, the guests were going back to their cars, and they were accosted by Antifa, Black Lives Matter, in their face, screaming, and really trying to intimidate, and some even got to the pushing and kind of shoving, and really got nasty. And Rand Paul was in the middle of that. And fortunately, there were a few DC police, but not as many that should have been there, especially in DC. But again, folks, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of DC, she's an antagonist against President Trump. And I guess I'm not surprised that she didn't have a police force that would be prepared to handle any of this disruption and people angrily hindering people to going back to their cars and going back to their homes. What a disturbing scene. But it's these type of things that are taking place, events that when you see Black Lives Matter, the masks off, and they're actually intimidating people and bringing this sort of intimidation to people peacefully going about their way. And that's the other part about the American people. Don't want this. This isn't what America is about, and I think that's why the polls have been an uptick for President Trump. Rand Paul also had some things to say regarding Joe Biden and his connection to the supporters of these Democrat-run states and cities, and putting we're actually putting the blame right there where it should be. I mean, what you're seeing taking place, most all the anarchy and the damage, the fire and looting and that's been taking place is in Democrat-run states and cities. And Rand Paul had wanted to call out Joe Biden and his party for what we've been seeing over the last 2-3 months that's been taking place in our streets. One thing I want to talk to about these Democrat-run cities, and I want to talk about how these protesters. I would say to these mayors and governors, be careful what you wish for, because you could potentially get snake bit. And it sure looks like Black Lives Matter and Antifa have some things to say. One to Muriel Bowser. They've been at her home and residence protesting about, you better defund the police. And like Ted Wheeler in Portland, he's now been there's been so much pressure, and Black Lives Matter's been out in front of his condo, threatening and really bringing anarchy in front of his home. He's leaving. He's moving out. It's gotten that bad. And the same with the Jenny Durkin, the mayor in Seattle. Black Lives Matter showed up at her residence there when they were in the middle of the summer of love, so Durkin said, until Black Lives Matter showed up at her home, and then all of a sudden there was changing her tune. She went in and says, we've got to stop these, this occupation here. We've got to disband it. And now, this past week, her administration, or her council came back and has been pushing for Seattle to defund the police. And she is on record right now to saying, no, we can't do this. We have to, we're not going to defund the police. So what a change. All it takes is when the mob turns on their supporters, and things change. Same thing with Mayor Lightfoot. The hypocrisy. They want to, she's all for defunding the police, yet and still when the protesters or the rioters show up at her home, she's hiring security guards to watch over her neighborhood and her home. And talk about some more hypocrisy. Here we have Nancy Pelosi this week tripsing into her salon, and remember, folks, the state of California, you can't, that's not open. It's outdoors maybe, but you can't go in. Well, that didn't stop Nancy. They have her on video walking in, not even wearing a mask, and she's in there, looking to get a blowout or whatever, and it's all caught on tape. Nancy Pelosi, hey, do what I say, not what I do. And that's the hypocrisy you see from many of these politicians, like and Andy Cuomo here in New York. Same situation. He might have a party or some gathering where there's more than 50 people, but he's got a law out there or an executive order. No more than, you can't have any more than 50 people, and you can't be gathered in indoors like that. But didn't stop him from doing that. So we see here these Democrat-run states and cities, and the lawlessness that's taking place. And I really believe that the American people are starting to see this. Now that we're getting closer to the election, people are saying, wait a minute here, look at what we're seeing happening right in front of our eyes, and people are starting to make a decision right now. I'd like to have us talk too about this election, and you've probably been hearing a lot about the mail, our mail system, and what they want to do as far as the mail-in voting. And folks, where I'm coming from is I really don't have a problem with the early voting, where an individual requests from their voting headquarters a ballot be sent to them. And if an individual that calls up or contacts their election headquarters and says, I'm so and so, this is my address, and I'm on the rolls, the voting roll, that's fine. But what the Democrats want to do is just have a massive mailing. Everyone in the country gets a ballot. Now, once again, we're seeing, there are people that are deceased. We've heard stories of them getting ballots, children, and the area of fraud rises when you just blanket send ballots out, and I don't think should really take place. Early voting, you request a ballot and you can prove who you are, fine. But what these Democrats are looking for is blank, just send it out, send it out, whether or not you can prove that the voting rolls are accurate or not. And that's been the other thing, is that over the last 2 or 3 years, the Democrats scream up and down when people are taking off voting rolls that have left the state or that are deceased. But hey, that doesn't stop them. And we've already seen some areas, especially in New York here, there was a race that had taken place, and it took like 4 months to finally get to the bottom of it, and there was still some question marks on some of the voters and the accuracy of that vote count. But I want to touch on a publication, Axios publication, that threw out this scenario, that President Trump would win the election by a landslide the night of the election. And, the clear cut, he's the winner. But oh wait, we've got to count the mail-in ballots that could take weeks, days, weeks, or even months as these ballots come in. And the scenario is that as these ballots come in, there seems to be, Trump's landslide win is less and less and less, and until President Trump loses the election. Now, this was, this came out this past week, folks, but they're kind of telling their story, exactly what President Trump has been warning about. And these Democrats are pretty good at accusing the Republicans for doing something, and they're the very ones that have been doing it right along. And I believe that this publication might be tipping the hand at what we have seen in the past, where votes harvesting takes place. So in these battleground states, that President Trump right now has been appearing that he was down in some of these battleground states by several percentage points, but over the last couple weeks right now, and as I had mentioned about what the people have been viewing on on some of these TV stations that have been truly reporting what's taking place. And after this, the Republican convention, those polls have been cut from 7 or 8 percentage points down to 3%. And in some of the battleground states right now, President Trump has a slight lead. So what we're seeing is that President Trump has been making ground, and that is why in these battleground states, that's where the potential ballot harvesting and the mail-in ballots, kind of flood in some of these states that they have to win, or they have to change the outcome. So there's a lot of room potentially for some shenanigans, and that's what President Trump has been really trying to vocalize right now. That concern is, that opening up of fraud that could potentially take place. That's why I think that there should not be a blanket mailing of ballots, but individuals request a absentee ballot, fine. But when you start talking about massively sending ballots to anyone, and it's almost getting to the point that postmarks don't even matter. So there's a potential that ballots are going to be counted days after. So a person mails a ballot, actually mails the ballot on November 5th, and supposedly they're still going to be counted. And it's that type of shenanigans that could potentially take place. And that's what I believe President Trump has been warning against. But we'll be keeping an eye on some of these states that will be how they're going to send out ballots, and will it be only absentee requests that are made, where someone requests a ballot and it gets sent to that individual person. We'll be keeping an eye open. We've got coming up to just 2 months to go before the election, so a lot to happen. And we'll probably be seeing some debates. We'll see. That's still an up in the air question, especially with Uncle Joe's faculties, and whether or not his handlers are going to allow him to debate President Trump. But that is, I think most likely the American people are going to almost demand that that there is a debate that takes place. And if he doesn't debate, I think it's going to hurt him strongly. So we'll be keeping an eye open on that, folks, and there will be more to come in the weeks to come. Well, I'd like to talk at this time regarding what I've discussed here regarding things taking place in our nation and the unrest that we've looked back and reflected on, and some of the challenges that many people are going through right now in the midst of COVID-19, the China virus, or Wuhan, whatever you want to call it, this pandemic that has spread through the world, and people's lives have been drastically changed. Those in nursing homes, those that had suffered in the hospitals, and those that have been mourning the deaths of loved ones. So we've seen our nation going through almost a topsy-turvy situation over the last 5 months. And I'd like to for us to maybe dwell a little bit on that. You look around, it almost seems like you look around and you see anarchy and chaos and that's taking place in our nation right now. I'd like to talk what we just came through here over the last week regarding Hurricane Laura coming through. And I noticed as when hurricanes come through, there's most people, the call comes out that you need to prepare, and people plan to leave the area until the hurricane passes, and they're boarding up their homes, and they're trying to secure their homes, and people are scrambling to get the family together and pets and to move. But I'd like to talk about this in the context of what we've been seeing and living through over the last 5 months, and how we could get discouraged with everything that's been taking place in the world, but our Lord doesn't want us to. And I'd like us to take a look at this time. God hasn't promised that there won't be any difficulties or there won't be any challenges and things that are disturbing that come in our lives. But God is there with us. So I'd like us to take a look at a scripture today, and it is from Matthew, and it's Matthew chapter 7. That's Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. Verse 24. Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will like him to a wise man who builds his house on the rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who builds his house on the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. So folks, God has not, God has told us that, that whatever we're going through, He will be there with us. And we can take comfort in that. But that does not, we don't want to lose sight that there will be trials, there will be struggles in our life. And if we realize that God's there with us and we hold on to that solid rock, and that solid rock is Jesus. So we can take comfort in that. We look back, as I had mentioned, during this, my perspectives, here on PJNET.TV. We've discussed some of the things that are troubling, and the things that have devastated many people. But to realize that we have a loving God who had sent His Son, the rock that we can hold on to. So when those storms of life blow, and the storms of and the winds of life blow against us, we have an anchor, and that anchor is Jesus Christ. And we can take comfort in that. God hasn't said that we wouldn't have trouble. He said the rain falls on the good and the bad, the wicked and those holy. So we can stand strong and be encouraged. God is with us. He's our solid rock, and we need to anchor to Him. When those troubles come our way, we know who to go to in prayer and ask to help us, ask to give us strength in those times of trouble. So folks, I'd just like to have us be encouraged that we can, when we look around and we are going through some difficult times in our life, hold on to that solid rock, our Lord Jesus. And that's my perspective and comments.